They told you AI is the future. They didn't tell you what's really at stake. There is a hidden arms race happening right now. No tanks, no missiles. But this race is going to determine who gets rich and who stays broke for the next 50 years. The rich already know what's driving it. Today I'm going to show you exactly where they're moving.
This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Welcome to the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good and bad about money. This is Robert Kiyosaki, and today is just you and me. And we're talking about what the rich are teaching their kids about money. Right now, we're living through a kind of arms race, not the kind most people are used to thinking about. Not tanks, not missiles, not territory on a map. This one is quieter, more technical, but potentially far more consequential. It's the race to build artificial intelligence. And here is what most people completely miss. This is not just a technology story. AI changes warfare. It can design more effective weapons, optimize military strategy, accelerate capabilities that used to be limited by human speed, by human thinking. That's not the future. That's right now. And people don't want to hear this. But that means this race is no longer just happening inside private companies. It has become a national priority. When something becomes a national priority, think about what that means. Governments pay attention. Billions get allocated. The consequences extend well beyond the technology sector. They extend into the economy, into the financial system, into who controls what. And the most important thing about a national priority, the rules change. When the rules change, the money moves. And when the money moves because of a national priority, that makes it an investor's dream. The question is always the same. Are you positioned like an investor? Or are you still waiting for the evening news to tell you what to do? Because by the time it's on the news, the rich have already moved. Now, here is something nobody is saying out loud. When most people hear AI race, they think chips, they think software, algorithms, the latest model. And they are not wrong. But they are missing something fundamental, something most people never stop to think about. AI runs on electricity, not a little electricity, enormous amounts of electricity. Training an AI model, running a data center at scale, handling millions of requests per second, all of it requires power, massive, consistent, uninterrupted power, every single second. And here is a number that changes everything. In the United States alone, new data center demand could reach 100 gigawatts within the next 5 years. Let me say this again, 100 gigawatts. That is roughly equivalent to building 100 new cities, just to handle the power consumption, 5 years. The existing power grid was never designed for that. For decades, U.S. electricity capacity grew slowly, predictably, a little bit at a time. It was built for a world that no longer exists. And now it is being asked to scale at a pace it was never designed to handle. Most people watching this AI revolution, they are buying the stocks, following the headlines, watching the earnings calls. But they are not asking the real question. Where does all that electricity come from? Not solar, not wind, not the grid you're already plugged into. Something else. Something that has been sitting dormant for almost 50 years. That is the question the schools never taught you to ask. And the answer is going to change how you think about money, about investing, about where real wealth is going to be built in the next decade. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Because when we come back, I'm going to show you exactly what that answer is. Thank you for listening to my show. Listen to this carefully, please. If you have any money invested in the markets, whether it's an IRA, a 401k, a brokerage account, or anything else, Public Law 6343 could have a major impact on your wealth in 2026. You've probably never heard of it before, but thanks to this obscure law, President Trump recently made a critical move that could impact your financial future, one that could create an explosion of new wealth for you and every hardworking American citizen. In fact, according to my friend Jim Rickards, a former advisor to the CIA and the Pentagon with close contacts inside the Trump White House, the president's move could reshape the U.S. economy and help unleash $100 trillion in new wealth. To find out how to stake your claim, go to the2026law.com for all of the details. That's the2026law.com, paid for by Paradigm Press. We're back. We're talking about the hidden arms race, the enormous energy problem that AI just dropped on the world. And now it is time to answer the question we left you with. Where does that electricity actually come from? Nuclear energy. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right now. Robert, nuclear? Isn't that old technology? Isn't that dangerous? I understand that reaction. For a long time, I had my own reservations. But here's what you need to understand. This is not the nuclear energy of the past. The technology has changed dramatically. The model has changed completely. And the smart money already knows the difference. Here is what has not changed. For nearly 50 years, almost nothing happened in nuclear development, not because the technology failed, not because the need went away, because the system surrounding it froze it solid. And here is a catch-22 that killed progress for 5 decades. Regulators wanted real-world performance data before approving new reactor designs. But there was no way to get that data without first building a reactor, and you couldn't build a reactor without the approval. No data, no approval. No approval, no reactor. The loop never closed. On top of that, every single plant was a custom one-off project. No standardization, no learning curve, no economies of scale. Each one took a decade or more. Costs rose, timelines stretched into multiple administrations, and progress crawled to a stop. This was not a failure of engineering. It was a failure of momentum. The engineers were ready. The technology was ready. The bureaucrats owned the gate. You want to know what stops progress? It is never the science. It is always the system. So what changed? Because something changed, and the timing is not an accident. New approval pathways have emerged, specifically through the Department of Energy. The new model is simple. Build it first, operate it, collect real-world performance data, then use that data to support broader approval and scaling. On paper, it sounds like a small bureaucratic adjustment. It is not small. It removes the single biggest structural obstacle nuclear development has faced in 50 years. The catch-22 is broken now. My rich dad taught me something I never forgot. He said, find where the government needs something, because that is where the money flows. Think about that. When the government needs something, the rules change. The incentives appear. The cash flow follows. I have watched this happen with oil, with real estate. Every time the government changes the rules around something they desperately need, the I quadrant investors who are paying attention get positioned first. The E and S quadrant people read about it later. The tax code is not a punishment. It is a map. It tells you exactly where the government wants capital to go. And right now, that map has a very clear arrow on it. Energy infrastructure, nuclear energy. The rules are changing. The demand is accelerating. And the economics are aligning in a way that has not happened in this country for a very long time. The 50-year standstill is ending, not because someone decided to be brave, because the demand left them no choice. And when something like that happens, the I quadrant moves first. Let me show you exactly where that money is already going. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Because when we come back, I'm going to name names. The companies, the models, the money. Thank you for listening to my show. Listen to this carefully, please. Thanks to an obscure 112-year-old law, President Trump recently made a critical move that could impact your financial future, and it could create an explosion of new wealth for you and every hardworking American citizen. In fact, according to my friend Jim Rickards, a former advisor to the CIA and the Pentagon, with close contacts inside the Trump White House, the president's move could help unleash $100 trillion in new wealth. To find out how to stake your claim, go to the2026law.com for all of the details. That's the2026law.com. I'll add the link in the show description. Paid for by Paradigm Press. We're back. Now, before we get into this, remember, I am not a financial planner. I'm not giving you advice. I have no idea what you should do with your money. Your money, your decisions. Listen to my research and my thoughts, then do whatever you want with it. Okay. The grid can't handle AI's power demand. Nuclear is unlocking for the first time in 50 years, and the I quadrant is already moving. Here's where. 3 companies, 3 completely different strategies, the same underlying insight. First company, Oklo. Oklo is not building a reactor and selling it to a utility. They are building the reactor, owning it, and selling the electricity directly to the customer. Think about what that means from an asset standpoint. They are not in the construction business. They are in the cash flow business. That is B quadrant thinking applied to energy. Use OPM. Own the asset. Collect the cash flow. Sound familiar? Second company, TerraPower. Grid-scale reactors, advanced cooling systems, integrated energy storage, hundreds of megawatts of reliable power, the kind of infrastructure that utilities depend on, the kind of consistent, uninterrupted power that data centers will pay a premium for. That is not a startup bet. That is infrastructure. And infrastructure is where generational wealth is built. Third company, X Energy. X Energy extends the model even further. Their high-temperature reactors are not just producing electricity. They are producing industrial heat, hydrogen production, heavy manufacturing. This takes nuclear energy out of the data center conversation and puts it into the backbone of the entire industrial economy. 3 companies, 3 approaches. One thing they all agree on: the answer to AI's power problem is nuclear. Now here is what stands out to me as an investor. These companies are not all betting on the same idea. They are each solving the same problem from a completely different angle. That kind of divergence, that is what the early stages of a major market shift looks like. And now you know where the electricity comes from. Here is a part that changes everything for investors. Old nuclear was built on one model, one massive, highly customized reactor, one plant, 10, 15, sometimes 20 years to build, each one a completely unique project, no two alike, no standardization, no learning curve, no economies of scale. That is not a business model. That is a construction project that never ends. The new model is the opposite: small modular reactors, small enough to be transported by truck, assembled in a fraction of the time, deployed in clusters that scale incrementally rather than all at once. Instead of building one massive plant every 2 decades, you build many smaller units in a factory, the same way every time. The first unit teaches you how to build the second one cheaper. The second teaches you how to build the 10th one faster. This is the shift from construction to production. And here is why that matters to you as an investor. The large data center operators, hyperscalers, are already paying up to 15 cents per kilowatt hour for electricity. That is a significant premium. And that premium creates a window. When the buyer is willing to pay more for speed and reliability, the market opens for new suppliers. That is how every new asset class begins, not with a guarantee, with a premium. And premium demand is what pulls capital into early markets before the crowd arrives. One more thing. A new reactor is already under construction at a U.S. national laboratory, the first of its kind in over 50 years. Expected timeline from concept to completion? A few years, not decades. This is the hidden arms race, not tanks, not missiles, electricity, nuclear, and the people building it. Here is what school never taught you. School taught you to get a job, and if you lost that job, school taught you to go back and get another one. That is the entire financial curriculum. Find a job, keep a job, retire from a job. But the I-quadrant investor does not think that way. They are not looking for a job. They are looking for a signal. School trains you to look at a paycheck. The I-quadrant trains you to look at the tax code. School trains you to fear debt. The I-quadrant uses debt as a tool. School trains you to save money. The I-quadrant moves money into assets. Same system, completely different mindset. And the system is not broken. It is working exactly as designed. It is just not working for you. My rich dad said it simply. The tax code is a government's way of telling you where to put your money. Civilization runs on energy. That is not a political statement. That is a fact. Without energy, there is no food supply, no transportation, no hospitals, no economy, nothing. And right now, civilization is being asked to power something completely new. Something that requires the equivalent of 100 new cities worth of electricity within 5 years. The I-quadrant investors who are paying attention, they are not watching the AI stocks. They are watching the power. They are positioned in energy infrastructure, in companies building the next generation of the power grid, in the asset class that AI cannot run without. That is what the rich are teaching their kids, not how to get a job, how to own the infrastructure that jobs depend on. That is the education they never gave you in school, because if they had, you wouldn't need a job. Most people will watch this AI revolution the same way they watch every revolution, from the outside. They'll see the headlines, read the articles, watch the stock ticker move, and they will think they understand what's happening. They don't. Because the revolution is not happening in the software. It is happening in the power grid. And the people who understand that are not waiting for Wall Street to confirm it. They are already building their position. That is the difference between the E and S quadrant mind and the I quadrant mind. The E and S quadrant asks, which AI company should I invest in? The I quadrant asks, what does AI need in order to exist at all? Same revolution, completely different question. And the question you ask determines where you end up. Here's what I want you to take away from today. The hidden arms race is not about technology. It is about electricity. It is about who owns the power that runs the machines. The schools taught you to be an employee. They taught you to consume. They did not teach you to own. They did not teach you to position yourself on the supply side of a national need. That is what the I quadrant does every single time. Everyone is watching AI. Almost nobody is watching power. That is the difference. Thank you for your time. Thank you for caring about your future. Thank you for understanding that you are the only one who cares about taking care of you. Take care.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.